All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts.
Here, if you have a beard, random men are going to always walk up to you and try to lick your beard.
Ew, that's so disgusting. Oh.
You're one of Mitten's kittens.
Hold on. Oh, so I'm like, nope. Oh, well, you lost all your fleets.
Oh, fuck. Not what we intended. Oh, God. What do we do?
The Meta Show.
What's up, everyone? It is Saturday again. Welcome back to the Meta Show. This week we do have Asher Elias. His name to fame is a Goons Forum Federation FC and leader of the Reavers, that non-existent group you keep hearing a lot about. So we have the Mittani and Nystrik with us again. My two lovely co-hosts. I love the hairdo and the goatee, Nystrik. Oh wait, sorry, the Mittani. My bad.
We're off to a great start already. Everybody, Laz has not slept in how many hours now?
A lot of them.
28.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, this is going to be
we're good.
It's
Great show.
It's going to be a lovely show. It's going to be extremely professional. We're gonna stay on track and totally not have some sort of like hysterical incident right in the middle of things. I'm sure.
Oh,
It can't be worse than the boat show.
Just
just saying. All right, so one of the important things about this week, guys, is the giveaways will be at the end. I know I promised you 2 times giveaways for the ships this week, but we're actually going to have to push that back again because this week we have a special giveaway. We're giving away 3 giveaways that we've never done before, and one of them is the Eve Online Second Decade Collection Edition. And also, the second one is going to be Eve Universe, The Art of New Eden. Both of these are really, really cool things that CCP has handed us to be able to give out to you guys. And if you guys stick around to the end of the stream, we'll be giving those away. And the last thing we're giving away is we have 3 codes for the faction rookie ships. Or not faction, pirate rookie ships. So if you can go and log into Eve, I don't actually have a picture ready, which I should have done. I'm sorry, I'm bad at this.
It's fine.
It happens.
People know
the,
what it is. It's
yeah,
fine.
the Pirate Faction rookie ships are really cool. You can normally only get them at conventions, places like PAX or E3. And when you catch in one of these codes, you get a choice of 5 ships that you can do. There are special versions of the existing rookie ships, but like instead of the Galente rookie ship, instead of a Velator, you end up with a Violator. And there's even a I think there's actually a wacky like Angel Cartel one, which is pretty crazy. So you cash in one of these codes, you can sell these things in Jita, but they're pretty damn rare, and we're really happy that CCP
about 200, 250 mil a piece, I think, for rookie ships. I mean, that's a lot of money for a rookie ship.
And the other thing is that the Art of Eve book that we have to give away is a hardcover, and it's not just the regular Art of Eve book. It is one of their limited edition ones, which is like the super fancy special kind, as opposed to just the normal. You can get an Art of Eve book, and of course we have the collector's edition box set, which comes with the Danger game.
And I'm really sad that I can't
USB
win it.
Rifter hub and a whole bunch of
want
other cool shit, including a mystery code for random stuff. So we're really happy that CCP has decided to give us these giveaways to hand out to our viewers, and it's awesome. We're very happy about it, and let's get to the down and dirty now that we've talked about the sweat.
Exactly. Well, like I said, we like to make it rain for you guys. But moving on, exactly. So to start things off, last week our very first topic was the ED dash fight. Asher, you being the leader of Reavers, can you tell us what Reavers are, what Reavers do, and then we'll kind of move into what they've been up to lately.
Mm-hmm. First off, I instituted a dress code for Reavers, and it's been pretty comedic. But one thing I did was I made Reavers directors have to look as bad as possible, because there's certain people who like find space cachet in being, space important, which I think is hilarious. So to counteract that, I made the look have to be really awful. I didn't realize that one day that would be representing me on a very prestigious Eve stream. So I'm pretty happy.
What stream are you on?
What's that?
What prestigious stream? Is there a different stream you're going on?
Yeah. I'm multi-streaming right now.
Oh, okay.
So Reavers, we don't exist. I got to throw that out there at first, or people will yell at me. We were initially conceived as a group that would go behind enemy lines and cause as much havoc as possible. But we really weren't sort of a direct confrontation group. We only took fights that were easily winnable, where we had high numbers advantage, and we kind of ended up in a weird situation where, when the Delve Fountain War was going on, we took a lot of SOV, a lot of R64s, and we ended up owning a lot of systems. And once the main fleet went back home, we said, let's stay and see what kind of fights we can get. And Darkness decided to move back in, and their numbers weren't very good at the start. Neither were ours particularly, but as sort of the conflict went on, more and more people joined up, and we ended up having some pretty even and exciting fights, which was pretty impressive because Reavers is a 500-man group, special interest group, and Darkness in their alliance has about 4,000 people. So I was really impressed with our guys.
Let's also not forget that the entire purpose of Reavers, when we designed the organization, Reavers, which doesn't exist, was never supposed to have pitched battles. The entire point of Reavers was to basically have lots of cloaks, run around behind enemy lines, create a bunch of structure timers as as an off time zone way to screw with people under Dominion Sov, and then avoid any actual fights that they couldn't immediately crushingly win. So we watched this from my perspective. It was really weird because all of a sudden I'm seeing Asher sending these pings about these massive fights in Quirius. It's what the fuck is this? Reavers aren't supposed to be fighting. Certainly they're not supposed to be beating an entire couple of alliances and taking one of the most important systems in Quirius, which is ED TAC, which is nuts.
Well, go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting me talk my own.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
I gotta moderate.
Thank you. No, when Reavers was being created, I think the whole premise of it was the Firefly Reavers. If you've watched the TV series or the movies, all that, Reavers are those I'm trying to think of the best way to describe
scary
it.
Monsters in the outer dark.
Yes.
They're completely insane. They run around. You're supposed to be afraid that they're going to show up and torch everything and then disappear back into the ether, leaving nothing but carnage in their wake.
Exactly. They come in, they fucking flip tables and fucking walk out. That's pretty much what Reavers is designed to do. And exactly.
It was less rage zombies and more rage autists, but yes, the idea
Rage.
was similar.
Oh my! Can we say that on TV? I don't know.
I was kind of regretting that halfway through it.
We'll find out, I'm sure, later.
Yeah,
we start getting emails mid-show. Before we get further into it, I like to thank White Halo, Rakens, and Eternal for the subs. Thank you guys so much for the support, and make sure we get a TMTV link in the chat for those guys. But no, Reavers. I know someone messaged me the week of the ED- fight and was like, hey, this timer's coming out, you want to come watch it and maybe stream it? And I was like, sure, I'll come watch it. And I ended up getting on comms, and I think I made the Reavers leadership mad because all the guys were talking a lot. Apparently that's new, because they don't talk a lot unless they're trying to impress me, is what Asher said.
Yeah, people were really sucking up. It was pretty funny.
They wanted to touch
celebrity
the
lads
beard,
is here.
presumably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Instead of kiss the ring, touch the beard.
Oh,
I think it's lick the beard is the correct terminology.
Oh,
Yep.
yes. It's all big and bushy now. I mean, it's
Wow.
a thing. But no, so after seeing that fight, I was like, man, this fight really makes me want to lead a fleet now. So when it came around to the ED- timer, I decided, hey, I'm gonna send a ping the night before. I'm going to lead Tengu fleet, and we ended up with 170 guys in Tengu fleet that we brought down, and they ended up beating us to the system in ED-. And I was like, I thought literally we should not have been able to make it in the system. If their FCs were smart, they would have camped the gate, wouldn't let us in the system. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna jump in. I'm just gonna die instantly. So I was really hesitant. And then Asher was like, all right, you know what, I'm warp station and skirmish. And as soon as he started brawling, I was like, you know what, they've just committed themselves completely to the station and bubbled themselves. So I just literally moonwalked into the system without a single fucking bubbling my fleet or anything. And then warped on grid, and we just started hazing them for the next.
Well, the interesting thing
hours.
about that fight was I had anchored, 30 large bubbles on the station before it started, and they drove me off when, because they got there before you. And instead of killing the bubbles, they put themselves inside of it, including all their dreads, which later on turned out to be a
I
huge...
had no idea. Like, so from a leadership perspective, it was, that fight was on a week. What day was that fight? I seem to remember it being.
It was a Friday. It was a Friday.
It was like the weekend. So I'm about to like go out and hang out with some of my friends. And Laz pings me and is basically like, hey, like, Mittens, is it cool, like, if I just, like, throw away a Tengu fleet because I'm going to go, like, get involved in this mess over here. I'm probably going to lose everything. And I'm like, yeah, sure, like, not too much is going on. Our, like, Reavers has had all of the content and they've been doing really well. Go give main fleet something fun to do. Like, who cares? Like, we can afford to lose a Tengu fleet, no big. And Laz was like, okay, like, I just wanted to get clearance. And then I come back out, like, 5 hours later. The fight is still going on. And you guys have like annihilated. It ended up being like 150 billion-isk death toll or something.
That's crazy.
What was it? What was the total carnage?
It was 160 on theirs, and no supers, no titans. That's a pretty good total for
and
those.
And like you nuked a whole cat fleet. I'm just like, and Laz is like, yeah, sorry, I didn't actually lose the Tengu fleet.
Yeah, sorry about not whelping the fleet.
Sorry about killing all the things.
If their FCs were smart, they would have. Like, it would have never turned out that way.
If their FCs were smart, they shouldn't have been losing stations to a fucking group designed to never have a pitched battle.
Like, one of the interesting things about interacting with, because even though you're enemies, you get some interaction with them, either in local or their FCs chat to you or whatever. And so Darkness, we started out with small battles, like 50 versus 50. And then they started using triage carriers, so I had to bring in more people. And what happened was I had help from Pizza. When I'm in space would show up, but it's off time zone for them, so you didn't get a lot of help. And then he put me in touch with Ron Mexico from PL. And, we got on really well. And he's just like, Mexico,
by the way. Good dude to hang out with Vegas.
We got along really well. And he's like, you guys are kind of outnumbered and we'd like some action. So he would show up. But Darkness was certain that we had hired them. And they think that everyone that fought with us was hired that wasn't GSF. And the truth is we didn't pay a dime to anyone. But they didn't get, because they were trying to hire people. But when all the big boys in this game have tons of ISK, friendship and giving someone a hand later on is much more important than giving them 5 billion ISK. Any ratter can generate that kind of money. So they were kind of surprised when people would not help them and come to our side. Because I would say, hey, you got a timer in the future, we'll show up and help you. That's worth a lot more than any amount of ISK. And they don't seem to have a grasp on the relationships.
Sitting on the fence too. Like the issue there is that like they've been. I think that from a political perspective, sort of into like diplomacy and politics territory, like the brand for Darkness and Kadeshi has been sort of under siege, I guess, because they were on too many sides over the last year and a half, 2 years. Like they were leading the HBC, and then they were part of like the Russian organization in the Halloween War, and then they flipped sides to N3, and then they sort of went off down there in the Southwest on their own. They're still sort of N3 affiliated, and there's just not really that much in the way of allies.
Yeah, I remember reading about all that and like the slow changes of what was going on with them, and I was like, who are they with? Are they just like, I used to think that maybe they were mercenaries because they would just flip. It'd be like, suddenly we're with these guys, and now we're with these guys, and now we're with these guys. So I thought, well, maybe that's what they are, but no, they're just, I don't really know what's going on.
When this conflict started, I had to go to Scion, our head diplomat, and I'm like, can you explain Sword Dragon to me? Because I was sort of like a newbie. Or
I don't know if there's
turn
that.
Let's not shit talk Sword too much. I mean, he is on the CSM, and I meant his motives. Like, what side is he on? Can you give me this information? Because I don't really know. And there you go.
Did he pull out a tri board with like pins and strings connected to all over different things to show you?
Like one of those like conspiracy theory scenes in movies where it's like, oh my god, it's this tangled web. This is connected to here, and like jet fuel, steel beams. Yeah, no, but it's a thing. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, bringing up Sword Dragon and Darkness, it is important to point out that when they did shift from the Russian coalition side after the Halloween War to the N3 side, Sword Dragon was not in charge at the moment, so he shouldn't be blamed for that. That had nothing to do with him. But it is very confusing, especially from an outsider's perspective, of like who the hell is on whose side in the Southwest,
like?
Sort of post-coalition, post-block. environment where there is no N3. It's just kind of like
You guys have been playing the game for 5-10 years. You have the sort of the benefit of perspective. I only started in
making me feel
2013.
old here. Oh my
I'm almost
God.
as old as you. I just started playing later, but
I started playing in 2013
Well-
too. No, 2010.
Let
You
me,
were in
before we
2010,
get too
Nystrik.
far, let me make sure Alexis and Xavier get their shout outs for subscribing to the channel. Guys, thank you for the support. They did not get a TMC lick in the chat like
They
should,
didn't.
so make
I
sure
got
you
it.
guys get on that. And like I want to get deeper into it because I know a lot of people commented on past meta shows about when we talk about tactics and EFT and stuff like that. And the ED fight was, I think, 1,200 people, 1,300 people in system total. And the big difference in our fleet comps was that the N3, which I guess is what we'll refer to them, which is with Darkness and NC Dot and Black Legion, they all brought brawling ships. They brought armor Lokis and all armor Tech 3s. And we had nothing but kiting doctrines besides my Tengu fleet. So the way that they should have handled this, if you're an FC or someone who wants to know an FC or the way an FC looks at things, is if the enemy you're fighting has one solid fleet that is the only brawling fleet that they have, you should immediately swarm that fleet. But instead, they let my fleet have free reign and get into system and sit off, and then our kiting ships which are going to have higher damage and not be able to tank as well. They just sat on the edge of the fight. So if you're ever seeing a situation, you always want to kill that meat shield first, because once that meat shield's gone, the kiting ships aren't going to pose hardly any threat.
people are talking about how EDTAC might have been the last big battle of Dominion Sov, but I think for me it's going to be the last. It's just my guess, but I think it's going to be the last battle of Ishtar supremacy. I feel like the Ishtar has the sword of Damocles hanging over its head, and they're going to come down hard on it.
That sounds kind of like a segue to me.
segues.
Very,
Yeah,
very
yeah,
subtle.
I was
very
throwing it out there.
nice.
Absolutely,
I'm
nicely
glad you guys
done.
picked up
We
on that
never
one.
have our guests do it. It's always Mittani trying to do it. So let's talk about those Ishtar
All right.
in the 07 show.
That's excellent. Well, I mean, yeah, we had a lot of interesting data that came out for this 07 show, which I'm really pleased to see. For the last few editions of the 07 show, there hasn't been, too much in the way of revelations, and this one was just jam-packed with all sorts of discussion about Ishtars and changes to fleet warps, and we're going to be getting into all of that now. Let's why don't we start with Ishtars, though? I mean, Asher and the Reavers have been using Ishtars like crazy, and
So is everyone else.
and everybody else in Eve. It's either take your pick, Ishtars or Tengus, and it's been this way forever. Now that's possibly changing. Asher, why don't you give us your perspective on that?
Well, they
and
haven't
how it
announced
last.
what they're going to do, so it's speculation at this point. They've just announced they're going to do something. But they've gone at the Ishtar 3 times now in the last year, and it really hasn't taken a lot of the shine off of it. So my guess, and just my feeling, is that they're going to come down hard on this one. I'm looking at sort of a post-Ishtar world. We'll see what they do. That's sort of up in the air. But with the changes they're making to missiles and combat battlecruisers, you might see a world where the Ishtar is not the go-to non-T3 doctrine anymore.
Maybe
like
we'll
that
actually
someone
see
made
like battleships and battlecruisers get used ever.
Someone made a joke in one of our articles that ran on TMC. And it was like, maybe when you unironically ask, "Can I bring my Drake?" the FC might actually start saying, "Sure, why not?"
Well, the Ishtar in the past, like when they made the changes, they haven't really been making changes to the Ishtar. They've been nerfing the weapon system, which is the sentries, which is effectively nerfing all the other ships in the game that use the sentries as well, which I don't think that was the answer, being that the Ishtar period was the main offender when it comes to the sentry drones. And now that they're saying that they're literally going to take a nerf bat to the Ishtar itself, I think they will probably be too heavy-handed because people are upset at this point because it's been, a year and a half that the Ishtar has been dominant.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think we give a fuck. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we say that on TV?
Yeah.
I don't think we give a fuck.
I don't think
we can
everyone
say
just
fuck.
wants it to go away.
Yeah, like at this point, like if I don't have to see an Ishtar as a mainline fleet doctrine for like the next 2 years, I'm good. Like it's okay. Like it's like eating cake for dinner every day for years.
I think though that like with the new release cycle though, if they are a little too heavy-handed to the point where the Ishtar is just completely useless, they'll probably revisit it rather quickly, which is the great thing about having a 6-week release cycle. So they can go, oops, nerf bat a little too hard here. Let's take a look at it. Let's fix it, and then in 6 weeks have it come back and have the Ishtar be not a completely useless ship if they nerf it too hard.
Yeah.
Everybody's really excited about Drakefleet. I mean, if you look at chat, basically
yeah,
nonstop
everyone's
ever since we
freaking
brought this up. And one of the things about Drakefleet that is has bothered me about the removal of Drakefleet as a doctrine is that Drakes, more so even than like Harpies and Assault Frigates, are, battle cruisers are really easy to get into. They're durable. They were relatively fire and forget. They were relatively easy. And we're always talking about making the harder aspects of EVE Online easier. And FCing, like newer FCs, loved Drakes because you could lose a Drake fleet. It would be fairly forgiving, fairly idiot-proof. And if you lost a Drake fleet, nobody cared. It was a fucking Drake fleet. It was basically like, a discount beater of a fleet. And it was forgiving. It was a great way for people to get their feet wet, as opposed to, sort of the high skill cap fleet doctrine. So, and they were just fun.
Drake Fleet is how I started FCing, and it was fun, and it was easy, and it wasn't difficult to do, and everyone was like, well, you're a new FC, and you lost a Drake Fleet. I don't give a shit.
Well,
Ishtars are really interesting in that way because they're really boring generally for the average pilot in them, but for the FC, they're one of the hardest fleets to FC out there. So you can't just give an Ishtar fleet to a guy who's learning and say, take this out, because if he gets bombed and loses 40, 50 Ishtars, that's a big loss.
yeah. Well,
Yeah, no, the Ishtars are expensive. It's a really difficult, like if you have a situation where the two dominant doctrines for the last 2 years are either Tengus or Ishtars, those are not the kind of doctrines that you're ever going to be giving to an FC who hasn't proven themselves repeatedly, right? So, they're expensive to reimburse. Smaller entities can't afford that. It's just not a thing. So like Drake Fleet, the changes to Fleet Warp, and some of these other opportunities, I think it would be really nice to see some more. I miss battleship fights, straight up. Like we've been saying this for a long time. Battleships, battle cruisers. There's all these other classes of ship that are not cruiser hulls, and you just don't really see that.
I only miss them because I never really got the chance to do them. Like, as I trained into Alpha Fleet went away. And I was like, well, I just bought this Maelstrom, and I've flown it once, and now I can no longer fly it because the fleet doctrine is dead.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get into this, but Atromotor, thank you so much for the subscription, buddy. Thanks for the support. Everyone, make sure you get TMC TV lick in the chat. But I think the whole guy, what about Drake Fleet, is more not about Drake itself, but more of the time period it was in. And the best fights in EVE are the bloody ones where there's high losses on each side. So back in the Drake Fleet days, that's when you had your Hurricane fleets, you had your Drake fleets, you had your Abaddon fleets.
I miss Hurricane fleets.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
Hurricanes.
I mean, you had Abaddons, Hurricanes, Drakes, Maelstroms, Rocks, and it was a very Tech 1 battleship, or a Tech 1 organized doctrine, to where you had really fucking bloody fights, and literally if you went to a brawl, every side lost a bunch of ships. And that's what people want in EVE Online. People want these fucking slugfests. And right now,
if you're gonna lose a fight, you want to at least take some of the other guy with you. So you, instead of going like, wow, well, I was here, I had a 3-hour long fight, my side got wiped out, and there was nothing there, which is a lot of times what happens these days. It's so one-sided. Like that was what was so great about that era.
I also like too that like when you'd form up, you'd have someone's dying apparently. If you can hear the siren, sorry about that. You had like. You could go on a Drake fleet, or you could go on a Hurricane fleet, or you could go on an Alpha fleet, or you could go on this fleet, and it was like, oh, I have like 8 fleets I could go on. What do I want to do today? And that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, the experience of playing EVE, even just as a line member, had a lot more variety. And even if you were just like pressing F1 or something like just an F1 monkey or whatever the line is, it's a lot more interactive than a Sentry drone related doctrine. So.
Yeah, when they changed to drones, I was like, and bored.
The downside to battleships is still the mobility. Unless you're in a fight where you have a defined border and you're fighting in a certain small area, battleships are just too slow to use. And if you're going to third party, you're going to take a wormhole these days. You can't put battleships through wormholes. Yeah. So the meta is working against them in that sense, in that they're just the warp changes and the fact that you can't Titan bridge them and jump bridge them quickly to someplace makes them hard to use.
I mean, they nerfed jumping by introducing fatigue, and yet that simply forced everybody to go, okay, well, we can't project power using carriers, okay, whatever, but that just means that everybody just uses wormholes now to get around. Like, there's essentially a webway network. I mean, that's great that people are experiencing wormhole content, and the fact that nullsec players have a reason to go into wormholes, learn how to use them, makes life more interesting for the wormhole players as well. But
that sounds
it
like a
does
little
keep
bit-
battleships in
Yeah.
purely a defensive role.
I mean, talking about like getting around and moving around, let's talk about fleet warp changes.
That's a good segue.
That's a
Yeah,
good one, too.
I did it.
You
I
did.
should
Do I
be
get a
practicing.
star?
I think
so.
she stood in front of the mirror, like practicing these segues after the medic show.
That one was actually kind of subtle.
Yeah.
I like.
So
Yeah.
the fleet warp changes, people are freaking out about them, and
especially
Let's go over what
Bomber
they
FCs,
are first.
like-
Let's say what they announced on the 07 show, so people
So
who missed
basically, they're changing so that you can only fleet warp to certain things. Like you used to be able to send out a probe and then just warp to the probe result. Now a ship actually has to land on that probe result before you can warp to it. You can only warp to Celestials, Gates, Stations, and Anoms. And otherwise, if you want to warp to a spot, you need a ship in that spot. You can't just fleet warp to a bookmark. You have to have a ship on that bookmark to fleet warp to it, or to a probed spot. So that's going to make the life of certain fleet types a little
I
bit
think
more
that's
difficult.
excellent. I mean, we used to not be able to warp to probe results back in the day. You'd have somebody, get a warp in, burn to there, and it gave newbies and frigates or like guys and interceptors something to do, as they would be the tackle and everybody would get on top of them. It's more dynamic, individual based gameplay. But on the other hand, I'm not really an FC. Asher Elias, what do you guys think?
I've FC'd one or two fleets. I mainly do
Once, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
I prefer the 5-10 man realms. But no.
Elias's hysteria from not sleeping for 28 hours
Yeah.
is beginning to show through. It's excellent.
No.
Okay.
So
It'll be like Clockwork Orange here soon. Tell me what you think about FCing, Laz.
That's terrifying.
well, the thing about these warp changes is they're not that big of a deal. But however, the biggest thing that I'm really terrified of right now is one of the main fleet doctrines you see in Eve Online right now in nullsec meta is slippery peats. And with these changes, the slippery peat, which is a bubble interdiction Tengu with long-range railguns, which could fire up to 220 kilometers. These things are fucking deadly. They might not be able to kill your DPS ships, but they'll warp in and zonk all of your tackle, all of your logistics, just basically anything that's not a main line DPS ship with a tank. They are going to be able to volley off the field. And with these changes, not being able to fleet warp like a group of tacklers on top of these Tengus to force them away, then they basically have free reign. Then that they can immediately fleet warp away from any tacklers that start to position themselves. And they're bubble immune, so you can't even bubble them to keep them from getting away.
I think everyone agrees that these changes are a buff to kiting and sniping fleets, and that
Yeah.
brawling fleets were hurt a lot more than the rest.
Yeah, some people are freaking out that this is going to be the death of bombers and bombing runs.
No, it won't be the death of bombing runs. It's going to make it a lot harder, literally a fucking lot harder for bombers at FCs, because
That's probably a good thing all the way around. I mean, bombers are one of the reasons, besides the changes in terms of power projection, why we don't see big slow fleets like battleships anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the problem with bombers before this change is coming is that bombers are really easy to use, and unless you're a skilled FC who has dealt with bombers in the past and knows how to counter them, then you're going to get your fleet obliterated. There's a lot of different ways for you to actually counter bombers as an FC, which we won't go in today because they're changing. It doesn't really matter.
Phantom 109 says CCP's nerfing boat. Boat is too OP.
Yeah.
But some of the biggest complaints I've seen actually in regards to warp changes is in wormholes. In wormholes, it's apparently a big deal because they use fleet warp a lot to be able to get to the sites and run the sites. And
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to be
They're
a
very
big
upset about
deal
that.
for wormholers.
Yeah, that's tough. I hadn't thought about that. That's actually
I know
one of
that-
the dangers of having
Yeah.
like a
Blanket
nullsec focused design, because like you'll change one thing because of a problem in nullsec and it'll break a utility in dice.
Well,
Sorry, Nystrik, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. No, see, I know it's important that you bring that up too, though. I mean, CCP has come out and said, well, we know that this hurts wormholers in a way that we don't really want them hurt, and we're working on ways to fix it, but we don't really know exactly what that's going to be yet. So they know that they're hurting wormholers. They are aware that they need to fix it, and they're working on something. We just don't know what it is yet. So hopefully wormholers aren't hurt too much in this, because
letting people warp to PvE sites, even like if the probe result is a PvE site, if they can just tweak it in the code where like you can just warp to probed out things that aren't ship hulls, then why is that a problem, right? I mean,
Sounds pretty reasonable.
I mean, that's solves.
They're
the
gonna have to make
problem
some changes. People are gonna have to adapt to new strategies. One thing I used to do when I FC Harpies a lot more was I would fly around with Odell a lot. He's our multi-box bomber. He's the only guy who's figured out how to do it, after the broadcast changes to Isboxer. But I would fly Harpies, and we'd be up against something like MWD Caracals. If I was sniping at them, they would stay aligned. But sometimes what I would do is I would just bounce up and then warp to 0 on their fleet. And for the Caracals, this is exactly where they want to be. They want to be right on top of me and applying this damage instantly. So they're thinking I made a mistake. Well, Harpies are actually pretty resistant to bombs for, a frigate. And so what I would just tell Odell is I'd be like, hey, dude, I'm warping in. As soon as I land, warp me at 30. I'm throwing up a bubble. I want you to bomb me. And the Caracals would think, no FC's dumb enough to bomb himself, right? Well, wrong.
Wrong.
And I would sit there.
I don't condone this at all, by the way.
I would lose all my bursts, all my T1 tackle, but all the Caracals are dead and my Harpies are standing. And then I would yell something like, now they know the strength of our resolve. And my fleet would roll their eyes at me.
That's awesome.
But
wow,
there
cutting off
are
your nose to
tactics
spite your face, but it works.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Hey, whatever.
But it's going to be real hard to do those kind of boat, 4 squads at once bomb runs that were just annihilating Ishtar fleets in Immensi. Those are going to be a lot, I don't think they're going to be possible anymore.
The biggest thing in nullsec that these warp changes are going to do is they're going to slow down fights. Right now, it's literally probe, warp, probe, warp, probe, warp, and all of your FC ships actually have probes on them, so you can fleet warp from your FC character. This is going to slow things down a lot, where FCs are going to either have to rely on other people to get warp ins, or they're going to have to be able to multitask with Isboxer or with multiple clients, and use a covert ops or a Tech 3 with bubble immunity to get these warp ins.
I think it's a good thing. I mean, like one of the things that like bothers me about the way in which fleet combat works nowadays is, I mean, probing is way too fast, right? Part of the reason why probing being fast is a problem is because it's so easy to do exactly what Laz just said, then that removes much wiggle room. It raises the skill cap for FCs. Like as a result, there's very little room for error, and you end up seeing like a few people who can handle that kind of speed of probing and react quickly enough, even in tie-dye. That doesn't give you that much wiggle room with the just rapid, especially with virtue sets. You can just probe something out, off you go, the fleet's in there, you screw something up, whatever. In this case, it gives something for line pilots, to have a role besides having the entire fleet automated and run by the FC.
Well, right, and that's one of their one of the reasons they came out and said, why would you do this? Well, we want to transfer responsibility of success of the fleet from FC to its members.
Having success and content depend entirely upon like, did Laz wake up on the right side of the bed this morning, and is he able?
Did Laz
to,
go to bed?
Did Laz go to bed?
That's not accurate.
At
He did not.
Right, like. So, I mean, back in the day, we didn't have this kind of level of automation in terms of fleet warping, in terms of the rapid probing and warping to probe results, anything like that. And some of what people see like the golden age of EVE Online, there was a time before that where you had to, like I remember during the Great War sniper battle fights, where you would have to be responsible for your own warping in, warping out as a sniping battleship. You would go off to like a pit crew, the pit crew would like rep you back up, you'd warp back in, and you as a line pilot had to do so much more, and as a result the fight was so much more meaningful.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember people were like, when you feel like you can't tank anymore, just warp off. And I was like, okay. That's
Laz,
weird.
you know what I'm most upset about? Not being able to warp my fleet to a perch on a gate and avoid a smart bombing battleship run. Like, I'm having to wait for someone to get to a perch is going to really bother me.
Yeah, that's going to be the issue. Is you're no longer going to, like, if you're a smaller group running away from a larger group, like say you're a roaming gang going through Declan and you're trying to run away from Theta or some other group of people that are chasing you. you can no longer try to get away from drag bubbles and stuff like that by fleet warping to perches. You have to make sure you always have a character like 1.5 to 2 jumps ahead of you. That way they can be pre-positioned in these spots. So I think this is really going to help, or not help, but hurt smaller groups more than the larger groups, which is unfortunately
what we've been talking
trend.
about for the last 3
Yeah, that's
weeks.
a theme, right?
I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah, don't
Mittani's
get
just like, you know what, I
started on
can't do it
this.
anymore.
Yeah,
Copy and paste. You know how
Yeah.
that works by now. So.
You know, that's the problem with Eve in general when it comes to the game balancing is the larger groups with all these changes are typically able to adapt because we have such large amounts of organization and
You
manpower.
can just pick out like 8 or 9 pilots in a fleet and just say, you go there, you go there, you go there, you go there, and just sit there and cloak. And we'll let
I'm
I can see Alex like wringing his hands, trying to.
We're not gonna go into that. But like the thing is that you know, I'm happy with these changes. I like the fact that they're going to be nerfing fleet warp. I think that, you know, we need to have more of an engaging line pilot experience. It's nice to see changes coming through the 07 show that like make me happy. Like the Ishtar stuff is good. I don't know where that's going to go. The idea that missiles are going to be more viable and we could have a return to using missile doctrines, especially because like any kind of thing based upon the Caracal is just awesome for me now because I love the new redesign of that hull. You know, it's nice. I hope the Ishtar nerf is enough. I hope that the issue of uncatchable doctrines like Slippery Pete's isn't going to be a deal breaker because I'd like to see more diversity. I don't want us to go to like, okay, well, Ishtars are done and it's just all like Tengu's online now. But it's a step in the right direction, and I think that needs to be praised. Openly.
I'm happy with the change. I think if you're confident in your FCing skills, then this is a change that's actually good for you. It's going to be your people who just followed the 10 steps to being an FC manual that are not going to be able to adapt to this kind of change. But people who can think on the fly will actually, I think, will benefit from this.
Well, you know, you have like in every fleet now, you currently have like an FC and you have usually like a Logi anchor who is a really trusted and respected member of the fleet. And the reason why this is nice is back in the day when you actually had to have people to like burn to get warp pins and things like that, is you also had like a high skill interceptor pilot role as like the guy who gets the warp pins and things like that.
Right.
So it gives people who are talented in different ways besides just being a fleet commander or a Logi anchor an opportunity to succeed and have a really amazing feeling of, I mean, hell, you remember that, Eve is Real trailer that they did where like the guy gets the warp in and he's like burning through everything to get the warp in and the whole fleet warps to him. And that was like his big, oh man, Eve is Real.
You had to go through 200 clicks. Yeah.
You don't get to do that right now because you just warp to the probe results. So now we're sort of going back to that, like, you know, you can be a heroic individual and make a difference on the field and have an intense experience. So,
well, right, and that goes back to like what I prefer to fly, which is frigates and smaller ships, interceptors, you know, cloaky stuff. And like I like to get into the middle of the fight and be like, I'm here, you're not killing me, now my fleet can warp in. And I used to do that a lot. I used to do perches, I used to do all that kind of stuff. And then when probes and people started using probes and drones and shit, it was like, oh, well, we don't need you. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I
have trust issues. I have.
Yeah, that's true. I have a really good example of that. Just happened to me this week. When I was fighting in Quirius, I had like 2 or 3 saber pilots that I would trust implicitly. Whenever that enemy T3, you know, that brawling fleet that wants to get on top of me bounces, you guys burn in that direction and get me screening bubbles so that they can't warp right down on top of me. Well, we went down and took a fight this week in Losec, and we brought our Ishtars. They brought their T3s, and it was my fault. I just didn't think through it enough. All that FC did was he would warp his fleet up to a perch and then warp down on me. And, you know, their webs would land within 20 kilometers of my slowest guys. They would, you know, get 4 or 5 lodges in a web, kill them all, bounce again, and repeat until I had no lodges. And, you know, without these trusted individuals to do that, you know, my fleets would have been screwed throughout this entire campaign. But it's one role for the Saber guys. But now you're giving roles to scouts, you're giving roles to people on perches. I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's a great change. But we're actually starting to run down time. We got 18 minutes left, so we're going to kind of push forward to some of the other 07 changes, and that was the heavy missiles. They said in the 07 show that they're going to be giving I think a 5% buff to heavy
5%.
missiles.
Damage increase. Yep.
Yeah, so that's going to be really, really intriguing, and I want to really see how that affects the rapid heavy missile launchers, which is a battleship-sized weapon, which is like the light missile launchers that go on cruisers, but with heavy missile launchers. So you have a high rate of fire missile launchers with, I think, a 35-second reload time, if I remember correctly. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the buff to heavy missiles, even 5%, even though it doesn't sound like much, if it's enough to be enough to bring back heavy missiles. Because right now with firewalling, which they also stated that they're going to be increasing the HP of missiles to kind of
that's interesting. What about the new low slot module that we've seen leaks on from, well, not leaks, but we've seen placeholder stuff pop up on CC? Did they mention that on the 07 show? That's
did.
like the precision thing. Okay, what's the deal with that?
There's a tracking computer version, so a mid slot, which is more important. A Drake can give up a mid a lot more easily than a low.
I don't know about these, like, because they're trying to engineer it where tracking disruptors or some other missile disruptor will be able to affect these ships, and the way the Caldari ships are all designed is they don't have the spare slots to actually fit these modules. So I wonder if they're actually going to maybe do something to make it where these...
they could change the slots up. I mean, there's no reason why they can't add or remove slots to reflect new modules. It's not like a slot is, some sort of crazy sacred thing. Like, if they're going to add the new modules to make the missile gameplay better, then just fool around with the slots until it works.
Yeah.
So that's my attitude, but that's, maybe it's like arcane rocket science.
Well, and the way I look at it is with FozzeSov coming, and are they going to have enough time to actually give this the proper attention? I mean,
with everything going on.
With like the Jackdaw, I mean, that's one of the things that's interesting to me is like we've actually got this really, like, the T3 destroyers always make a sort of an outsized impact whenever they hit, because usually they're pretty ridiculously powerful. And here's the Jackdaw, which was designed and implemented before all these missile changes. And to be fair, obviously it's not going to have anything to do with the heavy missile changes, but with the precision increases or the new low slot module, that might be a thing.
This brings us to what Asher wanted to talk about too. You want to talk about the Jackdaw and the...
Yeah, and it looks like the Jackdaw is basically a much better Hawk. You can fit more mid slots. You can fit more E-War in the mids, and the Galante one, the Hecate, I think I'm saying that right, looks to be like it's gonna be a super Harpy. What place are we gonna have for assault frigate fleets? After the whole line comes out, what are you gonna do when you have a Galante destroyer that has relatively the same range as a Harpy but more damage? Same thing with the Hawk fleet. Why would you fly? What? Oh,
my
assault frigates. Yeah. They're going to have to think of something, because assault frigates were already not in a great place other than a couple of them. And I think now there's very little reason to fly them.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaints right now in the small scale and solo PvP, or the elite PvPers in low sec who like to go around solo and with their links and all that. And they're talking about how they used to be able to go roam around frigates, get lots of fights and stuff like that. And now they're running into all these Tech 3 destroyers and just get zonked. And I agree that the Tech 3 destroyers, I think they're a little bit out of place, and that they're too powerful when it comes to dealing with what they deal.
I saw someone make an interesting suggestion. It sounds kind of crazy at first, but he said remove interdiction nullification from interceptors and put them on assault frigates. And if you think about it, actually, it pretty nicely, it lets assault frigates get in anywhere they want to go, and takes away some of the annoying parts about interceptors.
Which is what we want.
I think that is an interesting idea, actually, because in that case, an interceptor is able to align and warp ridiculously quickly and is very fast, and assault frigate is very slow, so the fact that it would be interdiction nullified, you would still have an opportunity to attack. Like, you're not going to have an insta-warping assault frigate, right? Like you can with the interceptors, where they can just zoom around without any bubble issue. That would be pretty neat.
I like the idea, but I personally, because of Slippery Pete's and the Fozzie Claws,
we need less interdiction nullification.
Anything that's bubble immune, I want to just go strangle Fozzie. Like, no more bubble immunity, please.
yeah, I'm not really sure how well. Like, there's been a power creep there. I mean, the bubble immunity started with, with the T3 cruisers when they first came in, but you had to make a fitting choice to activate that with a subsystem, and now it's just kind of begun to proliferate, and not in a positive way.
Yeah. We'll have to see how they want to go with it. And I know the Jackdaw will most likely get a nerf because it has way too much CPU.
Well, the same deal with the previous two. I mean, like,
Yeah, they'll get
it's one of
nerfed.
these things. It's like a champion in League of Legends, right? Like
Yeah.
the first month that it's out there, it's like, oh my
Echo,
god, it's so awesome.
hooray.
Yeah.
I was just about to say that. It's the Riot
Hooray!
Games release
That's
cycle.
Great.
Alrighty. Well, there is actually one point that somebody brought up in chat before we start diving into giveaways and things like that, is one piece of sort of metagame news, and also in terms of security news, is that there was it is now out in the open that several of the bankers for a gambling website called iwantisk.com were in fact nuked for illicit RMT. We don't really know all the gory details, but somebody wanted to see whether we had something to say about it in chat. It is interesting, and I think it's excellent to see that these things are being cracked down on. The CCB security team has been ferreting this sort of nonsense out for a while, and I'm going to give a shout out to Nosy Gamer, who writes a very good blog. If you're ever interested in really getting into the gory details, drilling down on it, he does an incredible amount of research and keeps an eye on the illicit ISK prices. So when one of these guys and one of these sites gets nuked, it does usually see an impact on the price of illicit ISK, and it's excellent. So good job to CTP for nuking those guys. And
they handled it really well. I mean, because they blacklisted it, and then they basically did not open their mouths about it, and just let their security guys do their security thing. And then once everything was figured out, they came out and said, "This is what happened," and it was very, very clean compared to some of the things that CCP does in the past. And
well, the security team has always been very effective in my view, and also like it's hilarious when they do ban an RMTer and then they come out later with all the evidence and you find out what happened, because during the period from when they blacklisted, so what happened was at first when they were investigating it, they made the site unavailable from the in-game browser, right? Just so while they were doing their thing, so you couldn't get to that site through the IGB, and then there was a torrent of excuses and abuse and nonsense bullshit from the guy who was running the site, saying like, this is unfair, like blah 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 blah. And then when it comes out that finally they conclude the investigation, sure enough there was RMT, several people get banned, then you sort of have the enjoyable comedy of going through and looking at all of the excuse made. It's like a politician getting caught with his hand in the cookie jar, basically. So
Yep.
It's highly entertaining, and A+. Thanks for that. So,
well, and shout out to Fiare for the sub. Then thank you so much for supporting the channel. It was a few minutes ago that you subbed, so just want to make sure you did get your shout out. And guys, if you have any questions, drop them in chat. Make sure you tag themittani.com so that it highlights it for us, so we can make sure we recognize it.
We can take some questions while we start looking towards our giveaways. Again, we have. Do you want me to talk about the amazing giveaways we have, Laz?
Yeah, go for it. We're going to start out with the Second Decade Collector's Edition.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So we are going to give a Collector's Edition away. This is a big box set, and it has, hilariously enough, the Mayor of Reykjavik done up in drag. He was not competing on RuPaul's Drag Race, which is one of my new favorite shows. I'm a little bit late to that particular party. One of my friends forced me to watch it, and it was pretty impressive. But anyway, so they've got John Nar, who's the mayor of Reykjavik, on the cover of the Danger game, which is, I think I'm going to mangle the Icelandic pronunciation. It's like Hattuspiel or something or other, which was the board game that CCP raised funds with before they actually made Eve Online. So this is like the revised modern version of it. And John Nar, again, he was a comedian at the time that he became the mayor, and then he reprised his role as like some batty old woman in drag on the thing. So there's also a mystery code. There's a Rifter USB port. It's this huge freaking box of stuff. So it's pretty cool, and we are very thankful that CCP has given us these giveaways to give on to you. You don't have to subscribe to get this. This is just a follower thing. We'll roll the dice and somebody will get a collector's. I think these things retail for a large amount of money. I'm not really sure what it is, but we're just going to give it out to you guys because that's kind of what we're here for. It is TMC's Summer of Swag. Now that we have the swag train rolling, we just make it rain on the boys. So that's what we're giving away. So why don't we do it?
And Nystrik, do you have your the giveaway app running?
Yes, it's working today.
Sweet. All right, so guys, make sure you type in chat to get in on that. And also, S-Hawk, where's the exact name? S-Hawk 420, thank you so much for obeying Hitmo Kitten and subscribing to the channel. Make sure we get a TV link in chat for him.
Never not obey.
Always
So,
obey.
Someone asked in
Mittens
chat,
Kittens.
is Goonswarm going to have a Jackdaw doctrine to replace Hawkfleet, or maybe just Jackdaws to Hawkfleet?
I really don't know about that. I mean, that sort of depends on what our fitting team says and how these will go. I would really like to have some sort of, like we're working on a homeland defense organization in Gunstorm because I think the FozzeSov, the index-based gameplay is going to be very interesting for people running around their home territory. And I'd like to find a way that we can take some doctrines just to basically force some diversity in doctrines by coming up with like T3 doctrines, this, that, the other thing, as long as they're effective at the small game level, because I want people to get out of the same like 2 holes and have a little bit more fun.
Someone asked do you think FozzeSov, you'll just have like 50-man interceptor fleets with Entosis links?
No.
No, they nerfed
No.
nerfed the troll scepters because of the mass limitation, and that's not really been. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think somebody's going to try it once, and then they're going to lose them all, and that'll be that.
No,
They
you'll
get shit
see
on.
all. But the
I have a question.
go ahead.
Has anyone been following the BNI, the Brave Black Legion War that's going on in Fountain?
I
A
saw
little bit.
that Bray or Hero actually like dunked Black Legion and Fountain
Hard.
a couple days ago.
Like
That's 'cause
1
the
or
Blue
2
Ice was-
billion
he
ist
came back,
to
right?
like 15
I
bill
don't know,
loss
actually.
for BL.
At least I saw
was-
that on Reddit.
Oh, it's good on Brave.
Yeah,
It's nice. It's a good chance for them to sort of learn how to fight and fight BL. BL is a good foil for them, I think, and it's. I'm glad that there's content in Fountain because that's going to be the Southwest is where a lot of us can fool around. We are. We should probably do another giveaway though. Let's give away some of the codes for these special edition pirate faction
Well,
rookie
let
ships.
me roll the collector's edition. I was waiting.
Oh, we haven't rolled the collector's
Yes.
edition.
No, I didn't roll it yet. I was giving people another
I was
minute to
running my
type things. There
mouth.
was a
Sorry
few
about that.
subscribers, so I'm just gonna roll it now. Guys, make sure you're typing. Oh, whoever won, you're not a follower. So unfortunately, you have to be a
Reroll.
follower to win.
Whoops.
So I have to re-roll.
And Frieza and Luminal Flux, guys, thank you so much for subscribing. Everyone, make sure you get TV like for those 2 new subs. Help us support the channel. We really appreciate it.
All right, so Keika, you're our winner. Congratulations for the collector's edition. So how are we gonna do this? Are they gonna just message us again? And
They need to message the channel with their real life information. Like literally, we need your name,
Your
address,
address,
etc.
yeah.
Social Security, of course.
Yes, debit card, PIN number, etc. No, so we need your name, address, and guys, as always, all the giveaways always rigged all the time. So you get the rig roll.
Okay, excellent. Well, with that, in order to qualify for these giveaways, all you have to do is follow the channel. These are not subscriber only. We do have 1 subscriber only at the end of the show. We're now going to give away a few of the pirate faction frigates, special edition ones. You're going to get a code when you enter that code in. If you win, you get to choose 1 of 5 rookie ships that are themed for the pirate factions in Eve. They're all designed for PvP, and it's pretty awesome. They look neat. They've got cool skins, and you sort of get to pick the one you like. So you get a code, and you get 1 of 5.
Yep. So guys, make sure you're typing in chat if you haven't already. We'll be rolling that in just a second. But in regards to the Jackdaw Doctrine for the Imperium,
yeah.
you won't really see anything like that until it's been out for a little while and they've done all their nerfs and changes to it. Because we don't want to go and buy 10,000 of them and then have them nerf them into the ground and not work. So just hold on, guys. There are going to be some doctrine changes with FozzeSov, especially with these fleet warp changes. But just you gotta wait and see, boys.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna roll.
Let's go ahead and.
Raycon, you've won yourself a code. Congratulations.
Congratulations, buddy.
This one, he just has to message us.
His in-game character name. He needs to message his in-game character name with what he won in the TMC mailbox.
And we'll just reply with the code for this, and you can do with it what you will.
We will.
Also, someone asked in chat, with Reavers becoming one of the more successful squads when it comes to taking things where they are, what's the future for the SIG then?
Well, Reavers are going to basically, if they can always, this is, I suppose, Asher, I mean, you're in charge of it, so why don't you tell us what the future of your SIG is? And I can tell you what, I'm going to tell you what to do.
Yeah, it's whatever the boss says. But barring that, I mean, Entosis things come out middle of July, and that's going to change everything. So we have sort of a U.S. time zone focus. We've got European focus groups in the Imperium, and so we'll probably look at people who set their time zones, their defense zones to the U.S. time zone and go hit them hard. I mean, it's pretty similar to what we do now. It's just made it a lot easier for us to capture stations than it was before. So the future is actually pretty bright for us. All the changes they've made have been a benefit to us.
All right, let's go ahead and roll the next code,
Yes,
please.
roll the next one. Rolling. Uncle Dunky, congratulations. You've won yourself a code.
Excellent.
Sweet,
Congratulations.
congratulations, buddy.
Now, whenever
And I'm-
people are talking here, do they have to start talking again between each giveaway?
No.
or-
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just going to roll again really quick
Beautiful,
for
'cause
the
we are-
third code then, just to get
Let's
it out.
do it, and then we'll go to the big fancy giveaway once we're done for code number 3.
Well, and before you do that last roll, Break Crew, thank you so much for subscribing. Everyone make sure welcome him to the club, to Mittens Kittens.
You are
Yes.
just messing
The
with
cringy
me there,
face,
aren't
I love
you?
it.
Yeah, I swear.
Well, you're not always here. I have to get them in when I can.
All right, so rolling. D_X3 Eve. Congratulations, you've won yourself a ship code. So go ahead and message the channel. Tell us that you won the rookie ship pirate code thing, and we'll get that to you.
All right.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Hold on, I gotta put the room in subscribers.
All right, guys. So this next giveaway is for the Eve art book, which is really cool. I saw it at FanFest. It is the Eve Universe: The Art of New Eden, is what it's called. It's a hardback edition book that I believe Mittani was explaining to us at the beginning of the stream, but it's really, really high quality, and it's a really big treat to have. And this is going to our subscribers, kind of our way of saying thank you for supporting us and hanging out.
So I can actually tell you why this issue and this book is so cool. So there's, the Art of New Eden limited edition has only 2001 copies in existence. It has a beautiful white leather-like clamshell protective box with an embossed black logo, an anodized aluminum commemorative and numbered plaque embedded in the protective box. I'm totally not reading this off of the dev blog
No, of
right
course
now.
not.
2 lithographs by Eve artists who have Icelandic names, and I'm going to butcher them, so I won't say them. A unique selection of in-game clothes. I didn't even realize, wow, you get like Incarna swag? Huh. Redeemable on the Eve account management site, and it's
Can
bound
I
in a...
get a sleeveless vest?
I think you need a sleeveless vest because, Capsuleer confidence. All
Yes.
tea. All right. So, so
Nystrik, please
this is
don't
going out to
die.
our subscribers. Thank you so much to CCP for supporting the Meta Show. We really appreciate it, and it's great for a chance for us to give back to our community. And
I think it's time to
Nystrik,
roll it.
if you want to go ahead and take it
I'm
away.
gonna roll this.
Oh.
Hold on, I gotta take Nightbot out of the winning. Hold on. I rolled the other day and Nightbot won. I was like, Nightbot, please.
All right, guys. After this show is it's typically going to be the boat show, but he does not have internet right now. They're not supposed to be by then fix it till tomorrow. So coming on after this is going to be K Color. I believe he's going to be playing some League of Legends, maybe some follower games, subscriber games. Maybe get some people in there. So make sure.
All right, I'm
Last
rolling.
boat.
Yes.
Atcher Mentor, congratulations! You've won yourself an Art of Eve
Oh,
book.
it's so rigged. New sub.
Asher Mentor, who's
New
sitting
sub
there,
from today.
rigged is the one who
One
won
of
the
our
text
new
one.
subs from today. Congratulations.
Congratulations. So this is a physical
Nice.
giveaway, so we have to ship this big fancy book to your doorstep. So make sure to message the channel with your information, your name, your address. Do not give your social security number, your PIN number, or anything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Even
don't
if you
do
want
that.
to. This isn't some sort of reverse psychology thing. I just don't want to. No, I don't even. But congratulations. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much to CCP for giving us such an amazing art book to give back to our community. We really appreciate it.
Well, and
Before we
thanks,
go, can I give it a shout out?
No.
Yes.
Go for it.
I just want to give a shout out to Boat for DBRB for winning all those fights in Quirius. He's the real leader of the Reavers SIG, and we appreciate all he does for us. That's
That's
it.
very true.
Oh, because
Thanks for having me on.
Boat needed an ego boost.
And Nystrik, who won the first the collector's edition? Someone in the chat's asking.
Keiga, Keigha.
All right, Kega,
Kega?
you won it. So you asking who won? You won, buddy.
Oh, congratulations, person who's asking.
Yeah.
You won a book.
All right, guys. So, guys, thanks for tuning into the Meta Show. If you are into H1Z1, we have the Undead Zone coming on in an hour. But immediately following this show is K Color going live. So make sure you tune in for all those shows, and we'll see you next Saturday. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Later.